The first time I felt like I had truly built something of value was when my homemade electric truck purred silently down our cul-de-sac, humming like a metallic whisper of rebellion. It wasn't just an engineering project. It was the culmination of 2 years spent scavenging scrap yards, reverse engineering Tesla schematics, and learning battery management systems from YouTube at 3 a.m. while my apartment lights flickered from an overloaded circuit. My garage, if you could still call it that, looked like a scene from a cyberpunk film. Wires snaking across the walls, solder burns on the floor, lithium-ion packs stacked like bricks in a fort, and one ambitious prototype parked dead center like an altar to obsession. The truck itself was built on the shell of an old Dodge Dakota, rust peeling like sunburnt skin, until I gutted it completely and gave it a new heart. A dual-motor drivetrain stripped from 2 wrecked Teslas I bought at auction for less than a used iPhone. The brain was my own Frankenstein combination of Raspberry Pi controllers and custom firmware that I coded myself, using open-source libraries and too much coffee. It worked, not perfectly, but miraculously. Range, 237 miles. 0 to 60, 5.4 seconds. Top speed, 108 miles per hour. It looked crude, painted matte black with primer still showing at the seams, but it moved, and it did so without a drop of gasoline. It was mine, a labor of love and circuitry. But then the HOA noticed. Our homeowners association was the type of suburban dictatorship that issued passive-aggressive letters over mailbox height and issued fines for planting non-native foliage. I had managed to fly under the radar for a while, mostly because my truck was either in pieces or quietly charging in the garage. But the moment I took it out for a real drive, just 1 block around the neighborhood, testing the regenerative braking, the Karen-in-Chief must have activated some invisible alarm. The next morning, a bright orange violation notice was zip-tied to my front door. Unauthorized vehicle modification and operation in residential zone. Section 8.7b violation. Immediate compliance required. Failure to remove non-registered motor vehicle from property will result in towing at owner's expense. I laughed at first. Towing? My truck didn't even have a VIN number anymore. It was, for all intents and purposes, an unregistered miracle. But then came the pounding on the door. 2 HOA board members flanked by a tow truck driver who looked more confused than I felt. They pointed. They gestured. They read clauses from a printed booklet I had never seen before. I argued. I explained. I begged them to just let me move it myself. But bureaucracy doesn't care about dreams. That's when it happened. They hooked my electric truck up with steel chains, carelessly at that. And as the tow truck whined forward, I stood there helpless, watching 2 years of grit, oil, and triumph being dragged like a common junker out of my driveway. My neighbors peeked through blinds. One of them filmed it. I posted the video on X, formerly Twitter, with shaking hands and a bitter caption. Built my own electric truck from scratch. HOA towed it. Because innovation violates neighborhood aesthetics. At Elon Musk, what would you have done? I tossed my phone on the couch and sat in silence. I didn't expect anything. I didn't even know what I wanted. Sympathy? Outrage? Maybe just a voice louder than mine to echo the absurdity of what had just happened. The reply came 4 hours later. It was a repost. Elon Musk, 132 million followers. A 6-word quote above my video. This is exactly how Tesla started. The post blew up like someone had dumped gasoline on a smoldering fire. Thousands of likes within minutes. Then retweets, comments from engineers, DIYers, tech influencers. Journalists started messaging me. One guy from Wired asked if I could do a full breakdown of the build. Another from CNBC wanted to do a segment. My inbox flooded with questions. What batteries did you use? Can you share the wiring diagram? Can I buy a kit? But the chaos outside hadn't caught up yet. The HOA didn't care about Elon's endorsement. They only saw a code violation. But by the time Tesla Daily ran a story titled, "The Garage Genius HOA Tried to Silence," the narrative had changed. That night, my driveway was empty, but my digital world was on fire. I was trending. People were calling me the suburban Musk. One commenter even started a petition to stop HOAs from interfering with home innovation. 38,000 signatures in the first day. And as I stared at my screen, watching my follower count tick upward like an altcoin spike, I knew two things for sure. One, I wasn't going to let this go quietly. And two, this was only the beginning of something much bigger. By morning, the dust hadn't settled. It had swirled into a digital storm. My post had reached the front page of Reddit's r/technology, made a segment on Bloomberg Tech's Morning Roundup, and spawned a dozen reaction videos on YouTube dissecting the frame-by-frame details of the toe. The internet had assigned me a role I never auditioned for, symbol of grassroots innovation versus institutional overreach. It was flattering, overwhelming, and chaotic all at once. My inbox was a sea of requests, venture capitalists asking if I considered turning the truck into a startup, influencers wanting collaborations, even a guy claiming to be from Shark Tank's casting department asking if I was interested in sharing my vision on national television. But underneath the dopamine rush of digital fame, the real issue still sat like dead weight in my chest. My truck was gone. I drove to the impound lot later that afternoon in my battered Toyota Corolla, the irony not lost on me as I parked next to the chain-link fence that enclosed what used to be my greatest accomplishment. There it was, my black electric beast, parked awkwardly between a smashed Honda Civic and an RV covered in graffiti. The toe had scratched up the rear bumper, and a wire hung loose near the right taillight. It looked defeated, silent, like a lion caged in a zoo. The attendant, a guy with nicotine-stained fingers and a name tag that read Ray, gave me a once-over before announcing I owed $470 in tow and storage fees. I asked if innovation came with a discount. He didn't laugh. As I paid the fine and waited for the gate to creak open, I made a decision. If the HOA wanted war, I'd give them a battle they couldn't contain in their neatly typed rulebooks. That night, I built a new web page, suburbaniverevolt.com. Simple at first, just a single page with photos of my build process, the timeline of events, and embedded clips of Elon's Reposted and the towing incident. But by morning, traffic had surged to 30,000 visitors. I added a blog, a donation button, and a mailing list. People wanted updates. They wanted to be part of the rebellion. Someone sent me a design mock-up for a merch line with the slogan, "Charge the System." Another offered legal advice pro bono. The movement had mutated beyond me. It was now a living organism, powered by likes, shares, and the raw nerve of public outrage. 2 days later, I received a cease and desist letter from the HOA's law firm. It was a 3-page PDF full of citations and legalese accusing me of defamation, unauthorized commercial activity, and disrupting community harmony through provocative social media content. I framed it, literally. I printed it on glossy paper and mounted it in my garage, next to a handwritten note that read, "Disruption is the cost of progress." Meanwhile, my truck had become a pilgrimage site. People drove in from neighboring towns to see it. Kids took selfies beside it. One guy offered to 3D scan it and post the model online for free. I allowed it. Every scan, every photo, every repost was another pixel in the high-resolution portrait of resistance we were painting. But I wasn't just basking in attention. I was upgrading. I replaced the damaged bumper, tuned the acceleration curve, and installed a makeshift solar panel array on the roof. A friend I'd met online, an ex-NASA electrical engineer turned off-grid enthusiast, sent me a schematic for an ultra-efficient regenerative braking module. I implemented it that weekend. Then came the invitation. A major tech conference in Austin reached out, asking if I would be a guest speaker on their Innovation Against the Odds panel. All expenses paid. I hesitated for only a second. This wasn't just about the truck anymore. It was about making sure stories like mine didn't end at the impound lot. It was about telling every teenager soldering wires in their garage that their ideas mattered, even if no one in a boardroom understood them yet. Especially then. I trailered the truck down myself. This time willingly, wrapped in a matte vinyl skin with the words HOA proof in bold, graffiti-style font on the sides. The conference crowd was massive. Startups, VCs, tech journalists, and engineers packed into the auditorium. I spoke for 18 minutes. I told them everything, how I built it, how it was towed, how the internet had responded. I ended with a challenge. What else are we building in silence, too afraid of breaking the rules to bring it into the light. The applause was thunderous. That night, back in my hotel room, I refreshed my inbox and found a message that made my heart jump. It was from Tesla. The subject line, "We saw what you built." I stared at the email for almost a full minute, blinking as if the letters might rearrange themselves into a prank. But they didn't. It was real. The Tesla logo gleamed at the top of the message, and the signature read, "Director of Experimental Vehicle Programs." They had seen my talk at the conference and wanted to schedule a call to discuss the potential alignment of values and ideas. I barely slept that night. My mind swirled with possibilities. Was this a job offer? A legal warning? Some sort of mentorship? The next morning, I took the call on Zoom, seated in front of my garage like it was a sacred space. The Tesla rep was calm, professional, but excited in a way that couldn't be faked. They had followed the entire saga. Elon's repost, the community backlash, the impound lot rescue, even the new regenerative braking hack. They didn't just want to talk. They wanted to fly me out to California, tour the Palo Alto facility, meet the engineering team, show them a truck. Within a week, I was walking the polished halls of one of the most innovative companies on Earth, badge clipped to my hoodie like I belonged there. Engineers in sleek black tees nodded at me with recognition. Some had watched the video. Others had bookmarked my schematics. The head of the Skunk Works division, a grizzled veteran with a military gait, inspected my build with the intensity of a surgeon. He ran his hand along the makeshift battery bay and asked questions about cell balancing, power output curves, and voltage sag underload. I answered all of them. For once, my rambling technical jargon wasn't met with blank stares or patronizing smiles. These people got it. They got me. Tesla didn't offer me a job. They offered something better. A grant, resources, access to a private garage space in Nevada near their R&D lab, a chance to keep building under their mentorship, but with full creative freedom. No clock-ins, no descodes. Just me and the tools, with an army of experts a Slack message away. I signed the paperwork the next day, my fingers still trembling as I held the pen. When I returned home, the welcome had changed. The same neighbors who had once whispered behind curtains now waved when I drove past. Some even congratulated me, referencing the clips they saw on TikTok or YouTube. The HOA remained silent, too quiet, almost calculated. That silence broke with a formal notice. They were revising their vehicle modification policies, citing evolving community standards and the public interest in promoting sustainability. No apology, no acknowledgement, but a victory nonetheless. I left the neighborhood shortly after, sold the house at a markup thanks to the newfound local fame, and moved into a workshop loft near the Nevada facility. It was industrial, minimalist, and perfect. I spent the next 6 months doing what I loved. Breaking things, fixing them better, designing new iterations of the truck, and consulting with Tesla's team on modular powertrain systems. The original build was now known online as the Garage EV, a symbol of defiance and innovation. Open source enthusiasts began replicating it worldwide. A startup in Brazil messaged me to say they'd adapted the design for rainforest terrain. A school in Kenya used my open schematics to teach students the basics of EV conversion. The ripple effects were bigger than I had imagined. Then the invite came again, but this time from Elon himself. A private unveiling event for Tesla's newest concept vehicle. When I arrived, I was ushered past the velvet ropes into the inner ring of innovators, engineers, and dreamers. And there it was, unveiled beneath shimmering white lights. The Tesla Nova, a modular EV platform built for user customization. It featured a control hub strikingly similar to the one I pioneered. Elon stepped up, gave his keynote, and midway through pointed toward the crowd and said, "This wouldn't exist without the guy who built a truck in his garage, got it towed, and turned the whole thing into a revolution." A spotlight found me. The applause was overwhelming. I didn't cry, but I could have. My truck, my stubborn little black beast of a build, now stood in a glass case beside the stage, restored, gleaming, preserved like a relic. But it was more than that. It was proof that even in a world of red tape, HOAs, and underestimation, Innovation doesn't ask for permission. It charges forward, hums quietly in a garage, and sometimes, just sometimes, gets towed right into history.